How does a woman celebrating her birthday end up dead in a hotel room thousands of miles from home? A luxury hotel room in South Africa. Birthday decorations still untouched. A phone on the bed, lighting up with messages she never read. This wasn't just a tragic death. Within days, one story would be told and completely fall apart, because the man who claimed to love her was the only one who knew what really happened. Mona Brown was 32, an influencer, full of life, building something for herself. Step by step, she had plans, a future, and just days before everything changed, she said yes to a proposal. The trip was supposed to mean everything. A birthday celebration, an engagement trip, a fresh chapter. She traveled from Oregon to South Africa with her fiancé, Mike Smith. 2 years together. Proposal on her birthday. A moment that should have marked the start of forever. But something about that trip didn't sit right later. Not the photos, not the timing, not the silence that followed. Because just days into that trip, everything stopped. Mona was found dead inside their hotel room. No warning, no goodbye, just a sudden ending in a place she had just arrived. And the only person there with her was the man she trusted most. Mike told authorities one thing. He said Mona took her own life. Just like that. A quick explanation with no one else in the room. Initial claim, suicide. But back home, the people who knew Mona best refused to believe it. She would never do that. Not after everything she had just started. Not after saying yes. Her phone kept ringing. Friends kept calling. Messages kept coming in. No response. Last contact. Unknown. Something didn't add up. Not the timing. Not the story. Not the man telling it. Because as her family began asking questions, one detail started to change everything. If it was really what he claimed, why were there so many things that didn't match? But one detail didn't add up. What if the last photos of Mona were hiding something no one noticed? A smiling picture posted online. A birthday message in the caption. And beside her, a man who looked calm, almost distant. Those final moments seemed normal. But when people looked closer, something felt off. Mona shared glimpses of the trip. Smiles. Light. Celebration. Final post. Birthday trip. But behind those moments, there was silence no one could see. Her best friend, Jasmine Cole, noticed it first. She looked happy, but something felt different. Not fear. Not sadness. Just not fully there. The last message Mona sent was short. No excitement. No details. Just a simple reply, then nothing. Last message. Brief. Unusual. Hours passed. Then more. Calls went unanswered. That wasn't like her. Back in the US, her family felt it. Something wasn't right. Not with her silence. Not with how everything suddenly stopped. Because while everyone was trying to reach Mona, someone else was already telling the story of her death. But who spoke first? And why? Why did his explanation come so fast? Before anyone even asked questions. A hotel hallway. A closed door. And inside, a story already being formed. Before her family even understood what happened, one version of events was already being repeated. Mike spoke to authorities. Calm. Direct. He said Mona ended her own life. His claim. Suicide. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Just one clear answer. But something about it felt too quick. Too certain. For a moment that should have been confusing, overwhelming, unclear. When the news reached her family, they didn't accept it. Denise Brown said at first, "That's not my daughter." Friends began asking questions. Jasmine Cole replayed their last conversation. Nothing pointed to despair. Nothing hinted at goodbye. No warning signs. The more people listened to his words, the less they believed them. Not because of what he said, but how he said it. Because while he was telling one version, the evidence inside that room was starting to tell another. Two stories. One truth. What if the room itself was quietly proving him wrong? A still hotel room. Personal items left exactly where they shouldn't be. And a silence that didn't feel natural. Investigators didn't just listen, they started looking, and what they saw didn't match his story. Nothing looked rushed. Nothing looked like a final moment. Scene review begins. Felt interrupted. Small things stood out. Positions, timing, movement, pieces that didn't fit together. Back home, her family pushed harder. Denise Brown refused to stay quiet. Jasmine Cole spoke out. Family rejects claim. They weren't asking anymore, they were demanding answers. Authorities in South Africa and the US began working together. What started as a closed explanation was opening back up. Because the more the scene was examined, the harder it became to believe his version. And then, one discovery shifted everything. One detail changed the direction. What if one small inconsistency destroyed the entire story he told? Investigators going back over every detail, replaying statements, rechecking timelines that once seemed simple. First, everything looked like confusion. But then, something didn't align. Mike's account was reviewed again. The timing he gave, the sequence of events, the way he described what happened. Statement under review. It didn't match the quiet reality of the room. Small contradictions started to appear. Not dramatic, not obvious, just enough to raise questions. Back in the US, Mona's family felt it immediately. This isn't adding up, Denise Brown said. Jasmine Cole agreed something was missing. Family suspicion increases. The case stopped being about assumption. It became about proof. And proof was starting to form in unexpected places. 2 countries were now involved. 2 investigations. 1 incident. But 2 very different directions emerging. Because as investigators dug deeper, they found something that completely changed the direction of the case. What if the truth wasn't hidden, just overlooked from the start? A forensic report being reviewed. Quiet offices. A case file slowly thickening with new details. What investigators found next shifted everything people thought they knew. The scene wasn't as simple as it first appeared. Certain details didn't align with the explanation given. Forensic review updated. Something about it felt staged, not spontaneous. The timeline began to crack. What was said and what was physically observed didn't move together. Mona's mother couldn't hold back anymore. That is not how my daughter lived. Jasmine Cole went public, demanding truth. Family demands justice. Pressure grew across both countries. Every new detail added weight. Every review pulled the story in a different direction. Investigators started leaning away from the original claim, not based on emotion, but on evidence that no longer supported it. And then came the conclusion no one expected. Case reclassified. What if the person she trusted most was the one who ended her life? A courtroom. Silence so heavy it feels unreal. Every eye locked on the final moment of truth. After everything was reviewed, the answer finally came out. Investigations confirmed what her family feared all along. Mike Smith was responsible for the death of Mona Brown. Final finding. Guilt confirmed. The story he told collapsed under evidence. What began as a celebration ended in accountability. The case moved through the legal system, and the final judgment was delivered. Mike Smith was sentenced to death. For Mona's family, it wasn't just a verdict. It was pain finally being acknowledged. A silence finally answered. Justice for Mona Brown. But no judgment can bring her back. Only truth remains. If you believe every story deserves justice and truth, subscribe to the Veil of Secret for more real-life cases that must be heard.